So here we are looking at the possibility of Nico Horner getting traded, but I'm going to tell you guys it ain't happening. And I'm going to bring on a very special guest to join me on this show. We're going to talk some Cubs baseball. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Let's go. All right, there he is, Tony Andracki. What's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
Well, let's talk some Cubs baseball. I know you're covering the Olympics right now, so this has got to be a hit and run. But looking forward to having you back on a lot here coming up in the upcoming weeks with pitchers and catchers reporting, and obviously the start of spring training and this Cubs team. Tony, I just threw it out there. I'm saying, after the Red Sox and the Brewers completed that trade, that I would call it a blockbuster yesterday.
Yeah.
The Cubs aren't trading Nico Horner or Matt Shaw. I'm throwing it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree at 100% with the first one. And also I'll go further and even say, like, I don't even know why they would really entertain trading Nico Horner. Like, I guess I understand it in theory, but, like, to me, you don't trade a Nico Horner. I don't care that he's in his last year of before, hitting free agency. I don't care that he, is a guy who will be lucky if he hits 10 homers in the coming season. Like, he's a winning ball player. WAR, obviously, we're in a day and age where you can calculate these things, these kind of ancillary effects that a baseball player has. But I just think Nico does so many things on an everyday basis, little things that don't necessarily always show up in a box score. But, like, he's a guy that if I'm a GM, if I'm building a team, like, you want 9 Nico Horners. And realistically, I think you could win well with that, even in a day and age where, power is in the instant offense is so important. But yeah, so I don't think that makes much sense. I really don't think they will trade him. The Matt Shaw part, I feel pretty strongly that they won't end up trading him, but I think that may be a little bit more likely. I agree with you too that, like, the Red Sox kind of finding a fit in their infield takes maybe the best trade partner possibility out of it. But yeah, I think the Cubs are best positioned if they go in to the season with both of those guys and let Counsell mix and match. Play Shaw at second one day or at third one day, or give Dansby a day off and move Nico to short, or DH matchups, whatever it is. I feel like having a guy like Shaw who can be a weapon is a really good thing for the Cubs.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I was surprised that the Nico talk got so hot, because if you're contending to beat the Dodgers, right, what are you going to do? You're going to trade one of your best players, and then look, I like Shaw, but he's an unknown compared to what you got with Nico Horner. To upend the Dodgers, to beat the Brewers and the Reds in the division, right, to get to the World Series and win it. I mean, you need as many, as you said, Nico Horners as possible. So I guess my next question to you is, they kept Nico, at least I think they're going to. They went out and made the trade for Owen Casey. I think that one could come back to bite him, but I love Edward Cabrera's stuff.
Yeah.
And then you look at, signing Alex Bregman. How would you grade the Cubs offseason?
Yeah, so I mean, I said this on a new podcast right now, the Windy City Breakdown that we had, and we graded the offseason. I give him like a B range to B plus. I think it's somewhat incomplete in the sense that, like you said, I think there's still, like, possible moves to be made, and it could mean subtracting from the roster, whether it's like a Nico or Shaw in a trade. But I think I really like what they did, because I like Cabrera. I think he's a guy that the Cubs have liked for a while. He has this kind of untapped potential, this enormous upside that, like, with the Cubs defense, with the Cubs pitching infrastructure, if he stays healthy, which these are all question marks, absolutely, but, like, he has this tantalizing potential that I think he can be a real weapon, like a number 2 in a rotation. I don't think it's out of the question that he could potentially be an ace someday. I don't, that's maybe not particularly likely, but I like that a lot. I think they remade the bullpen on the fly again. And I like a lot of those moves. Mayton's stuff is, like, really amazing. Like, look at his Baseball Savant page, and it's, like, all red. So I like that, and yeah, I like adding Bregman. Obviously, it's a huge deal. You kind of replace Tucker with Bregman, but now you get a guy whose floor is probably higher, which seems weird to say, but just given the last 2 years Tucker has had with injuries and stuff, I think you can confidently say Bregman's floor is higher at the moment. And the ability to move Shaw around and the fact that you don't go into next year, this coming year, with Matt Shaw, who really is just a big question mark, playing every day at third base. I feel like you needed something to kind of solidify this lineup, and Bregman was like an A+ move in order to do that. So I think it's a really good grade. There's probably still maybe a little bit more that I think they could have done, but I think this absolutely is a team in an offseason that like set the Cubs up to be clear favorites in the division in 26, and honestly really should surpass the Brewers and win it. But I've said that for like 8 years running, and that hasn't been true. So I guess we'll see when it happens.
Yeah, well, the Brewers are trading away a lot of their good players, though. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
they are.
Fangraphs has them way down. The Cubs kind of going in the right direction. It's not like Kyle Tucker was a super contributor after the June 2nd slide injury, right? But his presence was definitely big. I feel like having a right-handed Alex Bregman with this lineup with, Bush and Pete Crow Armstrong and, and some of these other left-handed bats kind of gives you a little bit more right-handed punch. Now, do you feel like the Cubs have one more move in them before spring training?
They might. I feel like this pretty much to me feels like the team. If they have a move, I think it's kind of more on the outskirts of the roster. Like, I don't know what they would do in the rotation. I don't think that they're going to make this big swing. If they do trade Shaw, I think it'd probably be for like controllable pitching. A guy that's under team control for 5-6 years from now. But I like the rotation a lot. You add Cabrera, you have obviously Shota coming back. I mean, things didn't end well for Shota, but I think overall he had a really strong body of work last year, and 2 years ago, his first year in the big leagues was really strong as well. So you have that, and then Justin Steele's coming back at I don't know when, June, July, maybe end of May. We'll see, but I just like kind of the way the rotation is set up. You have Horton, Boyd, Tyone, these kind of stellar guys. I think if there is a move, it might be on the bench for the Cubs, although I think, some of the moves they've made have been pretty good there. But maybe the bullpen, is an area where like you can add another veteran, add another hard throwing guy who misses bats. Maybe that's an area, but I don't see them making some sort of like big splash that going in before spring training.
What about, so you don't think Zach Gallen's a possibility? There's been a lot of rumors. Baltimore, maybe. Diamondbacks makes sense just because they don't have to give up a pick and the money works better for them. The Cubs sign them, they're going to have to give up a pick, and it's going to push them most likely over the luxury tax, which you kind of feel like with the Ricketts family, my buddy Tom, like they like to get to about here, but they don't want to go over here. Right? I don't blame them. I mean, business wise, but when one team spends like $1 billion on a payroll and everybody else kind of sits right at the line, it's hard to compete, and that team keeps winning the World Series. I'll tell you, Tony, I just got this feeling like the Cubs aren't out of this Gallen thing. I don't know why. They keep saying they want more pitching. He hasn't signed with the Diamondbacks. I got a feeling that Tom might go over the threshold to give the Cubs like just a little more pitching. And with this defense being so good, it benefits them. Like they're going to be able to win a lot of close games like they did last year, you would think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are valid points, but to me, I don't really see it with Gallen. I think like the numbers have been trending in the wrong direction for really like 3 straight years now. I mean, the WAR has gone down 3 straight years. His ERA has gone up 3 straight years. The injury issues, while not like intense, definitely cropped up, and he only threw 148 innings in the 2024 season. Like last year, his ERA was near 5. WAR just over 1. Like, I don't know for sure what the market is for Gallen. He's 30 years old. Is he going to get multiple years, or is he going to get kind of this 1-year reset possibility contract? And like you talked about with the draft pick compensation, that's really hard for any team, especially the Cubs, to try to do, to pay a guy like a year, similar to like the Cody Bellinger deal a few years ago the Cubs did, right? Like to do this and see if he can recoup value. When I like where the Cubs are at starting pitching wise, like I look at the rotation right now, and like I cannot say with certainty that like Gallen should if they signed him tomorrow, right, that he should bump anybody who's currently in the rotation out of it. And that doesn't even include Steele, who's not going to be in the opening day rotation. But like, I take Boyd, Cade Horton, Edward Cabrera right there, definitely over him. I mean, Tyone had a better year than Zach Gallen last year, like no question. Tyone also has been hurt the last couple of years. And then Shota, like I said, the last, September was kind of rough. The playoffs were rough. I feel like, the first, 6 months of his rookie year and 5 months of last year. So, I mean, the first 11 months of his career were good. The last month was bad. Like, I feel like there's more of a track record that he's going to be good and solid and strong. And you already have him. You're paying him $22 million next year. Like, I don't know how you can just push him to the bullpen or push one of these guys to the bullpen, and none of them except for Cade Horton have minor league options either. So I don't really know how you bump any of these guys and kind of make it work financially, make it work on the roster. And then, hey, somebody goes down to spring training. You have Javier Assad, who's a pretty solid option, and Colin Ray, who was maybe the most underrated player on the 2025 Cubs. So I like where they're at rotation wise. And to your point, I don't feel like Gallen's the guy that you go all in on and like go over that luxury tax, like way over it and stuff. So I don't think that's the way where I'm pushing my chips in on. But you never know. Along the same lines, the like Verlander, Scherzer types that are out there, I don't see the Cubs really doing that either. But I'd be more inclined to see something like that than maybe like a Zach Gallen, who I just can't. I don't know what his market's going to be. I don't know if teams are really going to give him a 3, 4, 5 year deal worth $75, $100 million. I don't know if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, it feels like to me like one of these like 1 year. It's like a 3-year deal with opt outs.
Yeah.
And like, are you willing to do that? And then if you're the Cubs, you're giving up a pick. I mean, are you, can you give up a pick and then lose the guy the very next year? And maybe you get the pick back. I don't even know. Like, there's so many different variables here, but it feels like to me, like they know what Zach Gallen's ceiling is, right? We saw it with the Diamondbacks in 23. And he was trending in the right direction at the end of the season. I think that's easy. I mean, like he had a tough go and the numbers weren't good. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, hey, you know what? He's starting to miss bats again. The velocity was never down. And I mean, like too bad. And then he gave you a ton of innings. That's the thing about Cabrera that worries me so much is I've seen Cabrera strike out the side 3 straight times and then he can't throw a strike. It's like, and that's not an exaggeration, so I'm wondering, like, and his consistency in throwing innings isn't there. It almost feels like to me, and I mean, I may be totally out, but it feels like to me the Cubs would get Gallen and then maybe move someone else because you're right. They have a logjam at starting pitching, but I don't know that there's a lot of like top of the rotation guys. I mean, I like Horton, but he was hurt last year in the playoffs, right? Boyd, we saw the playoff Boyd. I mean, Tyone's actually pretty good last year, I thought, at the end of the season. Like, I really liked him. Shota was terrible down the stretch. But I don't think that's indicative of him. I don't know. I just got my gut feeling is that they're really in on this. And I don't know what the move would be if they got him, how that would fit.
Yeah, I don't either. And that's why, like, you break it down, like I said, on like each guy that's on the team. I mean, sure, it's possible that they can move somebody else, but like Shota with that contract, that $22 million, like who's going to take that right now? I think he's better off and more valuable to the Cubs to come back and, prove that September and the little bit he pitched in October was the aberration and that the rest of his track record and career was who he really is as a pitcher, which also, by the way, a guy who's as smart, intelligent, cerebral as he is, like I am betting on that. I'm betting that, he'll always give up the home run. I think that's just part of his DNA, but I don't think to the level that he did in September and October. But yeah, I mean, you're not obviously Horton when healthy's there, but like Matt Boyd, you're going to try to trade him. That's tough. I mean, he's possibly your opening day starter. He was your game 1 starter in the playoffs last fall. And, definitely the most consistent, best pitcher from day 1 through game 162 last year. And again, value wise for, a 35-year-old with a really checkered injury history, finally put it together health-wise last year. Like, I don't know how much you're getting for him either. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
Well, do you think that? Let me stop you there. Do you
Yeah.
think that's why they feel like they got lucky last year injury wise? Because Boyd had his first like full season, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I thought he was he was great, man. Like, you can't take that away from him,
Yeah.
right? Horton I've seen Horton. I've been on Horton the entire time. Told everybody he was going to be the best Cubs prospect since Pryor and Wood, and I was right. Okay, but the other part about him is he's got an injury history too.
Yeah.
So, and it came up to get him in the postseason. This has followed him throughout his entire career. Same thing with Jackson Wiggins, who is an amazing pitching prospect that can't stay healthy. Justin Steele, guess what? He's had an injury history as well, and I love Justin, not just as a pitcher, but as a person. He's a fantastic guy, but he's been dealing with injuries. And they said, hey, look, we were lucky last year that we didn't get hit more with the injury bug, and that's why we want to dig deeper as far as pitching depth. But you nailed it. Like, two guys that are huge to me, Javier Assad and Colin Ray, just because of the fact that those guys are really good either way, like whether you start them or relieve them. But I just the reason why I think the Cubs are serious about this is that when I look at the rotation and I'm going, if they put him in their pitch lab, and this is what they do better than anything else they do. Maybe they figure out a couple of things with this guy. Yeah. And all of a sudden they get the Zach Allen that pitched a few years ago. And you saw him when the Diamondbacks kept beating the Cubs at the end of that season, knocked us out of playoffs. I'm sure that's what they're hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously would be, incredible because, like, you talk about Steele. Like, Steele was in that Cy Young conversation right alongside Zach Gallen in 2023. And, Gallen was awesome that year. He struck out 220 batters, pitched over 200 innings, made 34 starts. Like, he was really, really good. He was a clear ace for a couple of years there. The 22 season, the 23 season. Like, he was very clearly, like, one of the best pitchers in the National League in baseball, back-to-back years, top 5 Cy Young. Like, yeah, that upside is clearly there. The thing that worries me with him is I don't know what happened last year, why his production fell off so far. And I don't know that there's a real answer from himself or anybody, And, like, the thing that I always love that players say and point to is, like, if we knew what went wrong, we would fix it. And that's true, right? Like, they, if Kyle Tucker knew last year why he was slumping, after coming back from his hand injury and everything else, like, he would fix it. So, like, when you don't have answers for things like that, I think that's the concerning part. Like, it's not like I think, the Cubs would sign Zach Gallen and he would be injured right away. Like, he doesn't have this long injury history. It's just the fact that it's an unknown because I don't know what to expect from him. And I don't know if that's worth everything else that comes with signing him, whether it is losing draft pick, going so far over the luxury tax, pushing somebody out of the rotation, forcing, to trade a guy for pennies on the dollar, whether it's like a Tyone or a Boyd or whatever. I don't know that that's worth it, but it might be, you know what I mean? Like, if that ends up coming to pass, like, maybe that is, maybe Gallen, would come to Chicago and do well. But I also, feel like a guy like that, there's maybe a reason why it's mid-February and he hasn't signed yet too, is because the rest of the league is struggling to figure out what the market should be for this guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but don't forget about Carson Kelly too, man. That's his David Ross,
Yeah.
And don't think that those relationships don't matter. I mean, we saw it with those two, but I agree with you. But Boris is not going to try to take less than what he thinks he should get for this guy. You're right. Like, if the league felt comfortable with him, he'd have gotten signed like Dylan Cease.
Yeah.
But they obviously don't. And, here we are. I thought it was, and I'm not forgetting the fact that I don't think Bob Nightingale swings and misses like he did when he said that Gallen was coming to the Cubs. I think there was a reason why. And I talk about that all the time. Like, that guy has been doing this job for so long. There's a reason that he thought that. And I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that also goes into my gut feeling as there's more to this than what we're kind of probably seeing right now. But with pitchers and catchers reporting, I mean, this is going to be done here maybe this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If I'm a guy like Gallen, who, like we said, kind of has something to prove, a chip on his shoulder from last year, like, I don't want to go too far into pitchers and catchers reporting without a deal, without a new team. So, even with the Carson Kelly factor and the familiarity there, if he were to sign with the Cubs, like, I'd want to get that done this week and in the next couple of days to make sure that, I'm on the mound and in the lab and doing all these things to like get ready for the start of the season. So especially with like the WBC, this is just going to be a weird spring for everybody and like disjointed with, teammates and stuff, all that stuff going on. Like, yeah, I mean, if I'm him, I want to sign this week. Absolutely. And honestly, we're recording on Monday, within the next couple of days, I think, a deal could come to pass. I just don't know if that's what the Cubs or not.
Yep. Tony, how can everybody find you?
On Twitter at Tony Andracki 23. And we got the Windy City Breakdown, new podcast once a week too. So, and whenever you have me on, I'll be on here chatting with you, talking Cubs.
Let's go. The biggest free agent in the market right now. This guy right here, Tony Andracki. Hey, join Mick Nation, AveD. Hit that QR code right there. And we've got some swag we're giving away. We do weekly prizes. All of it's free, guys. So make sure that you do that. Get in the comment section. Say hey to Tony in there. And we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Cubs. All right, let's